My name is Joseph Malone. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be beginning our first video lesson series introducing propaganda. So, I'm going to talk about the table of contents, what we're going to cover in today's video, and then we're going to get straight into it. So, first thing we're going to cover is what is propaganda. We have to be contextually clear what we're talking about. I want you guys to all have the same definition. So we're working on a good foundation. Then we're going to talk about who uses propaganda. And then lastly, we're going to get into, so what is it used for? What is the whole purpose of propaganda? So we're going to start with what is propaganda. So very simple definition. I'm going to unpack the definition, break it down, so we make sure that we all understand it. But to begin, if you want to read with me, propaganda is information, especially of a biased or misleading nature, used to promote or publicize a particular point of view. So when we're talking about something being biased, that means that a person, a entity has a preferential position towards a particular idea, a preferential position towards a particular outcome. So there's something that they desire to happen, and so they are leaning towards a particular position or idea that's going to help one get to that particular outcome or help one get to believing a certain idea. So that's the idea behind bias. It's not, you're not being completely objective. You yourself have biases. You want a particular outcome. And if you think about it in just a practical sense, like in our own lives, all of us are biased to some extent. You know, we want gas prices to be cheap. Why do we want gas prices to be cheap? Well, we want to keep some of that money to ourselves. We don't want to pay the big oil guys, Chevron and Shell. Also, we're biased towards things of that nature. So being biased isn't necessarily, I don't want you to associate it with good or evil. In particular, the case we're about to talk about, we'll see that the Nazis were biased towards an outcome that was evil. But being biased is not necessarily associated with good and evil. It is an indifference, but it is one where you have a position where you are a benefactor. You're leaning towards a particular position or idea because in some capacity you are a benefactor of said outcome, idea, position. The reason I bring this up and I'm elaborating on it so much is it's important as we're learning, as we're studying, as we're looking at propaganda to recognize our own biases, because this is what propagandists play on. They play on our biases. They play on these preconceived notions, things that we already believe. And so we're going to learn more about that in next and further lessons, confirmation bias and so forth. But I really want to hammer this down in you guys' head to understand that propaganda is biased information. It's misleading information. It's information that is used to promote a particular point of view. It's trying to get you to think a particular certain way. Okay. I didn't nail that in the coffin. We're going to move on. So who uses propaganda? So technically, anybody could be a propagandist. I mean, you could be a propagandist. I could be a propagandist. Your cousin could be a propagandist. Your mother. I mean, nobody's outside of the realm possibility of being a propagandist. Because all being a propagandist means is that you are a disseminator of false or not entirely information. So again, in a practical sense, a way you could think about this is maybe you're on Instagram and you see a video of something that took place. We can think of last year when President Trump there was an assassination attempt on President Trump. Okay, so there's a lot of information after that event took place that is coming out. We don't know entirely at the beginning if all the information that is coming out is completely accurate or true. But our minds are like, oh my gosh, like they just tried to assassinate President Trump. I'm going to share this. I'm going to share this. Then you come to maybe find out later that the information that you originally shared, the details of the event, were not entirely accurate. So, in that capacity, even though you didn't know it and you didn't mean any harm, you were acting as a propagandist because you were a disseminator of false or not entirely true information. So this is a whole nother tangent, but that's why you should always try to vet the sources that you read, vet the sources that you look at, try to read sources from both sides. Like me on the political spectrum, I'll watch Fox News and I'll watch CNN. I'll watch the liberal news and I'll watch the conservative news, and I will gather my position based on those two outlets that I'm reading. So bring everything together. Anybody can be a propagandist, okay? Most commonly, though, you're going to see media outlets being propagandists. You're going to see the government promoting propaganda, political parties, corporations, activist groups, and in some cases, terror and extremist groups. We see this in the Middle East, and this is how they propagate these people to commit acts of terror. Is they fill their minds with propaganda of, oh, the Western world is so evil, and we have to fight, against the perils of the evil Western world. So, this is the way that propaganda works. So most of the time, it's not going to be solely a person. You're going to see a large entity of some sort being the propagandist. So that is typically who is going to be using propaganda. So the last thing we got to answer is, okay, well, we know what propaganda is. We know who uses propaganda. Well, what do they use it for? Okay, so I'm going to talk about this picture that's off to the right in just a second, but I'm going to make the argument as a historian who studies propaganda, who studied Nazi Germany. I think propaganda is used to persuade a person to carry out a specific desired action. Okay, and I'm going to unpack that in just a second, but I also want to read this next point. Propaganda primarily does this by suggesting through its messaging a change of one's thoughts and or beliefs. And so the idea here, the way human psychology works is everything that we do it based off of, it's first a thought and then it's an action. There's no action that precedes a thought, meaning that you first had to think about doing something before you did it. There's nothing that you just did and you didn't think about it. Insofar as like deliberate action, now, I'm not talking about your fight or flight reactions and so forth. Like, I'm not talking about your fear responses. I'm talking about deliberate action, things that you do. You first have a thought about it and then the action is carried out. And so propagandists, they understand the basic human psychology in that effect, that if I can change the way you think, if I can change your beliefs, if I can tap into some of your biases that you maybe already have, and I can change the way you think, then I can change that. I can change your actions. I can change the things that you're going to do. So, an example of this from Nazi Germany would be the ideological propaganda. This whole idea of the Jews are evil, the Jews are the source of the downfall of Germany. This is the idea of promoting anti-Semitism. And so the idea for the propagandist is, if I can get you, the Germans, if I can get people to believe that the Jews are evil, that they're greedy, that they are an internal threat to Germany, then what do you think people are going to do? If they seriously, wholeheartedly believe that these things are true about the Jews, what do you think they're going to do? And we saw the action that took place after that, unfortunately, through the millions who lost their lives, and millions others who were persecuted under Hitler's reign. So, but that's the idea, y'all. That thought leads into action, and so propagandists understand this. Now, I want to go back to this first point that I made here. Propaganda is used to persuade a person to carry out a specific desired action. So everything that you're gonna see with propaganda is going to be aimed at getting you to do something, as I just discussed with the anti-Semitic. But it's always going to be aimed at getting you to do something. So when you see information on the internet, and we're going to talk about this in the next lesson more, but when you see information, you always should be, curious. What is this person by posting this? What are they trying to get me to do? What are these people trying to get me to believe, to get me to see? And so let's go back to this first picture right here. When we look at this picture right here, we see a picture of Uncle Sam. This is Uncle Sam right here, and he's pointing his finger at the person who's looking at this poster. This is a poster from World War One. This is what they used to recruit people in World War One. It said, "I want you for the U.S. Army nearest recruiting station." Well, what do you think that this piece of propaganda is trying to get people to do? Well, in World War One, they needed people to go out and fight the war, and so what did they do? I want you. So they're using a symbol, Uncle Sam. So he's basically saying the government wants you to join the army. That's what he's saying. And there's a lot of other propaganda from World War One. Like if we look at this one right here, it says bonds are bondage. Every day, every day pay 10%. Well, in World War One, they needed some kind of way to fund the war. And so what they would do is write out these bonds. And if it's basically, not to break down what a bond is, but you loan the government money, and what they'll do is they'll pay you interest on the money that you loaned them. And so basically this propaganda piece right here is saying bonds are bondage. Either you help us fund this war, or they're going to take over our country and there will never be any United States of America ever again. Now, we know that's such an extreme idea to consider, that, oh, well, if I don't help fund this war, that all of a sudden some kind of way I'm going to be in bondage. No, they're using fear of the elimination of what as home to get you to support the war effort. I mean, it's highly unlikely that even if the United States lost in World War One, that there would somehow be this complete dissolution of the United States, and that we would now be occupied by foreign powers. I mean, that is a very long shot that I don't think would likely ever happen. But this is what they're trying to get you to believe, that if you don't support the war effort, that your stability, the life that here at home is at stake. It could potentially go away. So this is the use of propaganda. They're trying to get you to do certain things, and they use certain techniques. We're going to talk about that in the next lesson. I talked about it a little bit here, but they use certain techniques to get you to do certain things. Here we see to the right with Hitler, it says, Führer, we will follow you. So this propaganda piece is showing all these people behind Hitler. And what are they trying to get you to do? I mean, it says it. You need to follow Hitler. Führer in Germany means leader. Leader, we will follow you. So this whole idea that, hey, you need to trust Hitler, his plan, it may seem crazy that he wants to get rid of the Jews and he wants to dominate Europe. And it may seem crazy that he wants to do all these things, but trust the Führer. He will lead us. Don't question things that he's telling you. Trust him, follow him, do what he says do. And so we saw that in Nazi Germany. Like, a lot of people just blindly followed Hitler. They trusted him. They thought that he was leading Germany into a better place. And so that's a whole nother conversation to have. But that is the reality of what was taking place for the majority of people that lived under his reign. They really did believe that they were doing the right thing. Even though they were doing evil things in the name of right, they believed, because they trusted Hitler, that they were doing the right thing for their country. So bring everything full circle. Propaganda is used to persuade people to carry out desired actions. And again, that whole thing is that if I can change your thinking, then I can change your actions. Okay. And so we're going to break down in the next lesson more about the techniques that they use and how they go about persuading you. But for this lesson, I hope that you understand what propaganda is, who uses propaganda, and then what it's used for. So we're gonna have a critical thinking moment. Critical thinking moment, and then we're gonna talk about the next lesson, and then I'm done. So today, again, you learn what propaganda is, you learn who uses propaganda, and you learn what it's used for. So I want to leave you with something in preparation for the next video. I want you guys to become a skeptic. If you're listening to this video, I am, yes, I'm teaching you about propaganda, but as I told you in my introduction video, I believe that history is a great vehicle to teach the human mind how to think for itself. So, one big thing that I want you guys to take away from this is to become a skeptic. Develop a healthy level of skepticism and curiosity. Skepticism is basically just that you don't believe everything that people tell you. Going back to the example that I was giving you earlier, if you're looking at content on Instagram, X, Facebook, whatever, and it's trying to get you to believe a particular thing, you should question. That thought bubble should come up in your head. Is this information true? Let me go try to fact check. Can I verify, can I corroborate this person's story, whatever it is that you're trying to convince me? Don't just blindly believe everything you see on the internet, even if it comes from reliable sources. People watch the news, they watch Fox News, CNN News, and they just believe what these people say. I don't believe anything that anybody says unless I can go and I can verify the information, I can corroborate whatever that was said. And that has its pros and its cons because you cannot, always try to corroborate and prove everything. But what I'm trying to get at is to develop a healthy level of skepticism, curiosity. Why is this person trying to get me to believe this? Why is this person posting this? Why is this person, how might this person benefit? And as you do that, you'll get insight into another side of how things really are. And you start to open your mind and be like, okay. Another thing, and we'll get out of here. So for the next lesson, we are going to talk about how propaganda is created. We're going to talk about how it's used. I went over with you guys a couple of the propaganda pieces in this video, but I want to bring you guys behind the scenes. How is propaganda created? Like, what is the propagandist thinking as he's creating the propaganda? And then how is his mechanism of going about disseminating it using the propaganda? We're going to look at the techniques too, and so when I say techniques, I mean there's different persuasive techniques that propagandists use. We saw one, they're using fear. We see in another, the one with the Führer, that's more of bandwagon. Well, you should follow the Führer because look at all these other people who are following the Führer. You don't want to be the only one that's not following Hitler, do you? So sometimes they psychologically manipulate through mechanisms like that. So we're going to talk about all of that in the next lesson. I'm going to give you guys some examples of propaganda from Nazi Germany, and then we're going to relate those to modern day examples because there's a lot of propaganda out here today, and we're going to talk about that as well. So if you made it through the entirety of this video, greatly appreciate it. Hope you guys took something away from this video. Until the next time, my name is Joseph, and I'm out. Peace.